Rick Flag and Frankenstein decide to work together to save their loved ones, Princess Alana Rostovich and Bride. They sneak inside Terrebonne University to gather information on Dr. Isla McPherson, a tenured professor and the leading scholar on Themyscira. Frankenstein wonders how sneaking inside a school would help him get to his bride, but Flag reminds him of their agreement. In exchange for his help with saving the princess, he vows to help him reunite with Bride. Flag explains that McPherson was the one who claimed that Cersei's visions of the princess causing World War III were real. With the commandos returning to Pokolistan to assassinate the princess, their job is to find out the truth about McPherson so they can stop the commandos. With his help, Frankenstein can then come out as a hero, and he can then see Bride. Excited, Frankenstein wonders if he needs to kill the professor or the students, but Flag claims that it is not the kind of hero he meant. Flag suggests they check the professor's house while she's teaching a class at school. On the way to the professor's house, Flag still tries to warn Alana but struggles to reach her due to the language barrier, and the person on the other end hangs up on him. Thinking of Bride, Frankenstein is reminded of the past. When Bride goes out to fetch Victor some lemonade, she walks in on Frankenstein over his dead body. Frankenstein claims that he only did what he needed to do, but Bride jumps at him in a fit of rage. She tries to choke him, but Frankenstein overpowers her and turns the table on Bride. She kicks him, which he catches on fire, and Bride runs away. Flag and Frankenstein make it to the professor's home. When Frankenstein sees a person walking a cat, he is reminded of Bogdana, the gypsy old lady that saved him back then. Just as Bride leaves him in the burning mansion, Frankenstein makes it out alive and walks to a nearby lake, where he loses consciousness and drifts downstream. An old lady with a dog finds him and pulls him out of the water. She then takes him back to her home and treats his injuries. Frankenstein later regains consciousness and wonders what she was doing. She explains that he is badly burned and that the ointment has ancient healing properties, which Frankenstein calls gypsy shit. Days passed, and Frankenstein recovered from his injuries. Frankenstein wonders why she doesn't look at him when she talks, but she explains that she is blind. He claims that this world holds nothing of worth besides beauty, and states that he'd rather kill himself if he were to go blind. He explains that the beauty of his bride is what keeps him going. Bogdana asks him to close his eyes and imagine Bride. When he describes Bride as beautiful, she explains that is what every day looks like, claiming to see more beauty than anyone can imagine. After recovering from his injuries, Frankenstein helps Bogdana by bringing back a turkey for dinner. Frankenstein was impressed with the shotgun and how easily it took down his prey. He then thanks her for nursing him back to health, but she explains that this is not just a place for him to recuperate, but a home that he can always return to. She claims that she and her dog Ivan have been the happiest ever since he came into their lives, even though he can be quite a grouch. Back to the present time, Flag breaks into the house and finds McPherson dead. They suspect that the McPherson they saw at school must be fake, some disguise artist working for Cersei to throw them all off track. Flag tries calling Alana again. This time, he finally gets to speak with her. He quickly warns her to get out, claiming that the commandos are on their way to kill her. He could not explain further as the fake McPherson had just arrived home. Frankenstein is furious that Flag did not tell Alana about him, to which he hoped she'd vouch for him with Bride. Flag argues that Bride wouldn't even listen to a word she says, given that she is there to kill her. Frankenstein questions their agreement, worried it won't help him get back with Bride. Flag tells him to hide, but when he doesn't care, he pulls rank and insists that he follow orders. When they sneak downstairs, they discover the imposter has molted and revealed to be the shape-shifting metahuman Clayface. Flag tells Frankenstein that Clayface is dangerous and suggests sneaking out to avoid a confrontation. They quietly walk past him, who seems busy playing the Xbox on the couch, when Frankenstein notices that Clayface has tentacles pass under the sofa to catch them off guard. While Frankenstein is pinned down, Clayface throws Flag against the wall and keeps punching him. Frankenstein breaks free and charges at Clayface, but it swallows him whole. Clayface loses his grip on him, and Flag starts shooting at him, but it is ineffective, and he quickly regenerates. Clayface catches Flag and pummels him to the ground, wrestling his worn body and breaking his back. Frankenstein tries to break free, but Clayface pulls him back inside. He managed to reach out for an outlet and pulled out its wiring to electrocute Clayface. Having finally beaten his ugly ass, Frankenstein holds a beaten-up Flag in his arms, begging him not to die before he answers his questions. He keeps asking him questions about Bride, but Flag doesn't answer, and his last words are to tell Bride the truth before he supposedly dies. Holding Flag in his arms, Frankenstein was reminded of the time he left the old lady to look for Bride. Bogdana begs him to stay, but he insists on going, claiming that he needs to find Bride, of which they are destined for each other. She tries to convince him that Bride nearly killed him, but Frankenstein describes it to be her way of being flirtatious and coy with him. Bogdana begs him not to leave her alone, but Frankenstein claims that he has no intention of leaving her by herself. She wonders why Ivan is outside, and he explains that he worries he wouldn't understand what he is about to do. Frankenstein then takes a pot and beats her with it, but given the blood splatter in the window, he supposedly kills her. Ivan is initially sad for his owner when Frankenstein steps out of the house, but he still follows Frankenstein. Meanwhile, the commandos arrive at Pokolistan, where Alexei, the captain of the Royal Guards, greets them. Alexei finds it strange that they're back so soon, but Bride explains they are here to protect the princess after receiving credible reports of another threat. He claims they had no problems when the country was isolated for 100 years. As soon as they opened communications with the Americans, they quickly received multiple threats in a span of weeks. When Alexei asks about the danger, Bride brushes him off and walks away. En route to the castle, Alexei receives a phone call to warn them of what the commandos are planning. He tells the commandos that they will be taking a detour, claiming there is traffic up ahead. Bride sees through Alexei's plan and calls him out while driving away from the city. Alexei argues that it may seem a roundabout, but this is supposedly a shortcut to the castle. When they drive to a dead end, Alexei claims the engine makes a weird sound. Dr. Phosphorus realizes that he was trying to stall for time and insists that he keep driving. Out of nowhere, soldiers have them surrounded, and Alexei demands Bride surrender. Suddenly, Dr. Phosphorus drives his arm through the seat and punches a hole in his face. As soon as Alexei died, the soldiers started shooting at them, and a shootout ensued. The leader orders the others to focus on Bride and Dr. Phosphorus, claiming them to be the only threat. Bride charges head-on and jumps at the leader, flying in an armored suit. She beats him up in the air, and they both crash on a rooftop. Bride tears off the blasters from his arms and shoots them all down. Dr. Phosphorus confronts an oncoming tank, and although they try to shoot him down, everything gets melted down, and he burns through the tank and kills its driver. He then mercilessly kills a half-dead soldier who begs for his life. The commandos get separated as soon as cops show up on the scene. Sergei, of the Royal Guards, meets with Ilana and reports back to her that the commandos have escaped. He claims that they did their best and doubts that they'd be much of a threat on their own out there. Ilana feels terrible, but they had no choice, claiming they had been misled by their government. She orders Sergei to seek them out and kill them all. After a brutal standoff with the Pokolistan army, the commandos get separated and are forced into hiding. To get past the patrols, Dr. Phosphorus hides in one of the trash bins when he is reminded of the past. Alexander James Sartorius, aka Dr. Phosphorus, was a former scientist of Gotham City who was later captured by the crime lord Rupert Thorne. He tries to jump from a moving van, but Thorne's men catch up to him and drag him back. Back to the present, a heavily injured Flag is taken to the hospital, accompanied by Argus director Amanda Waller and Argus member John Economos. Upon initial assessment, the doctor informs Waller that Flag is in a coma, has a broken back, and is suffering from significant internal damage. He states that a monster, presumed to be Frankenstein, dropped him off at the emergency room door. Given the description, John recognized it as Eric Frankenstein and claimed he had been stalking the bride for centuries. Waller worries that if Flag told Frankenstein where Bride is, he could stop her from assassinating the princess, which Cersei claims is how World War III starts. She quickly orders John to have operatives watch the airport immediately. At an airport, Frankenstein hijacks a plane, claiming to be on a quest to save the love of his life from making a huge mistake. The pilot gets scared into submission after seeing the mangled bodies of the passengers. Back at the castle, Sergei is confused as to why the commandos are attacking, but Ilana claims that, according to Flag, they are being misled by Cersei to assassinate her. Sergei suggests getting her into the bunker, but she refuses to hide. She orders him to find and kill the commandos if he must, claiming that the people of Pokolistan depend on it. Meanwhile, Nina tries to escape the knights in an alley when she bumps into Bride. They try to escape, but the knights have them cornered, so they hide inside a building and discover it's a brothel. Bride threatens the owner to turn away the knights, or she will blow her head off. Nina is surprised that Bride quickly turns to violence to solve everything and suggests she undergo therapy for it. As expected, the knights did show up at the shop, but were surprised to find only working ladies there. The knights decided to leave, but not before asking them to report if they saw any suspicious individuals. As soon as they leave, Bride claims they will be staying there until it all blows over, to which Nina suggests they play a game to pass the time. The owner states that girls like them would quickly become popular, claiming that men like women to be strange. Bride states that she and Nina have more respect than resorting to selling their body, but the owner argues that they're already using their body as weapons to kill people. The owner claims that her eyes tell a story and that it is telling her that she has no respect for herself or anyone else. The women who work for her struggle because they want to live, unlike her, who does everything she can so she can die. Bride pulls the owner aside and points a gun at her face, clearly offended by her remark. Suddenly, they hear a knock on the door, and the owner claims it would seem suspicious if they don't answer. A couple of thugs walk in and pull one of the girls upstairs. Later, they hear screams, and the owner runs to check it out. The working lady explains that she tried to stop him as he was hurting her, but he wouldn't listen. When the owner tells him that no one hurts her girls, the man shows off his powers, revealing himself as a metahuman. When she stands up for her girls, the violent man tries to choke her when Nina smacks him from behind with a bottle. The man's friend went to check what had happened, but the customer suggested they kill everyone and leave. Before he could even use his powers, Bride shoots him in the head. The violent man rushes at Bride and sends her flying with a powerful punch in a fit of rage. Bride stands back up unscathed, walks up to the man, and beats him up. She breaks his arm, throws him against the bed, and drives her arm through his chest to pull out his heart right before his eyes. After making a whole mess, Bride and Nina leave the shop, but not before the working lady gives her thanks. Nina tells Bride she's a softie, but argues that she was trying to save her, as usual. Meanwhile, Weasel escapes outside the city and is chased into the forest. Fleeing from the knights, he quickly finds himself surrounded by rabid wolves. He tries to escape when they slowly surround him, but the pack leader blocks his path. As they get closer, Weasel goes into a battle pose. But instead of fighting his way through, he tricks the pack leader into playing Go Fetch. With it, he successfully tamed the wolves, and they played catch. He spends the night playing with them and falls asleep in the company of wolves. When morning came, he tiptoed, trying to avoid waking them up. He looks back and feels terrible for leaving them behind. Still, he continues the mission and heads toward the castle in the distance. On the other hand, Dr. Phosphorus is being cornered and forced to break into a house, melting the doorknob. A little girl walks in on him and claims that she is hungry. Watching her eat makes him feel nostalgic for his late child, and he is reminded of the past. Back then, his wife Parvin was against him working for known criminals, but Alex explained that he couldn't continue his research without their funding. He claims that, although they may not be good people, he can't pass up on a project working on the nuclear fusion treatment that destroys cancer forever without harming the patient. With a treatment like that, his father or Parvin's mother might still have been alive. His wife claims that there is another way, but it results in Thorne's wife and child dead. They then smeared blood on his hands and framed him for their deaths, planting his fingerprints on the murder weapon. Distraught over what happened, Alex tried to escape and jumped off a moving van, but they caught him still. They then ransack his lab, but when he asks why they are doing this, Thorne reminds him of their agreement. They would fund his research, but in return, they would get the results of all his experiments to share with their friends overseas. Alex is aware that Thorne sends those results to Bialya, a fascist regime, but Thorne argues that it is all just business. Alex claims he did what they wanted and shared the results with them, but Thorne throws a fit. Thorne was appalled at Alex, who thought he could trick the Bialyan scientists with made-up stats and research. When he was about to bash his head, Thorne's men claimed they might have found the actual results. Alex explains that his wife came from a country with an oppressive regime, hence why she was sensitive about giving nuclear secrets to another. Thorne was displeased at him for trying to throw his wife under the bus. Alex claims that he didn't think anyone would notice, which Thorne describes as nothing but a con man's excuse. Thorne orders his men to grab all the hard drives and throws Alex into a nuclear containment chamber. Thorne claims that it is common for a man to go crazy after killing his family, and that he commits suicide by atomizing himself with nuclear energy. He and his men laugh as the machine burns the skin off Alex's body, telling him that he should have never messed with Rupert Thorne. Little did they realize that not only did they fail to kill him, but Alex turned into a radioactive metahuman, later known as Dr. Phosphorus. He seeks revenge against Thorne, starting with the gate guard trying to stop him. He places his radioactive palm on his face and burns it right off. He then walks in on Thorne and his family having dinner, and he mercilessly murders them in cold blood. He also tracked down Thorne's henchmen and tortured them before killing them. Having killed off Thorne and his men, Dr. Phosphorus takes over his business, money, territory, and everything. Scared for their life, Thorne's partners agree and begin partying. He's stepping into his new role to become history's biggest and baddest crime lord. One night, he and his men visit the Ice Lounge, dancing to a crowd while reminiscing about his former life, including the night of his marriage and playing with his son. His crime spree ends when Batman takes him into custody and he ends up in Belle Reve Correctional Facility. Meanwhile, Waller gets restless waiting on Flag, who is still in a coma. She claims that they needed to know what happened to him. She wonders if this is connected to everything and who did it to him. Waller states that he is too old, too tough, and too stubborn for him to give up now. Frankenstein arrives in Pokolistan while Ilana prepares her knights for the commandos. The commandos meet up on a cliff headed for the castle to finish the mission once and for all. Thank you for watching. Check out these other videos, and make sure to subscribe and tap the bell to be notified about our latest videos. See you next time.